This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the Take Control ebook series. The answers you need now from leading experts. Get them all at takecontrolbooks.com. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is the home of truth, justice, and the Macintosh way. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have a diverse and fascinating panel for you this time to take on fascinating and diverse topics, some of which we don't even know what they'll be yet. Let's go around the room first and see who all you're going to be hearing from. First up is our tradition, ladies first, Dori Smith. Dori, it's great to have you on the MacJury. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Chuck.
So who are you and what do you do?
Well, I do a little bit of everything, pretty much anything somebody will pay me for. Usually that's writing about technology. I'm best known for having written a couple of books, JavaScript, Visual Quick Start Guide, and Dreamweaver Visual Quick Start Guide, both from Peach Press and both written with my co-author, Tom Negrino.
And of course, Dori is being modest. She's got a whole list of books as long as your arm and web projects and all kind of things. So it's great to have you, Dori.
Thank you.
Next up, I don't believe he's been here on the MacJury before, so this is first time wearing black robes or not. Mr. Brett Terpstra. Brett, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
It's a serious mic you got there, Brett.
That is a Yeti that David Sparks gave me when we wrote a book together, and I've been using it for my podcast ever since.
Great, great. So how about you give the folks a little bit of an idea of who you are and what you do when you're not hanging out with David Sparks?
I do a whole lot of stuff that I don't get paid for. My day job, I work for Engadget and the unofficial Apple weblog behind the scenes creating the blogs themselves. And in my free time, which is what I'm far better known for, I blog at brettterpstra.com where I share all my crazy kind of Mac mad science, I would call it. And I write an application called Marked. And I recently put out a book with David Sparks called 60 Mountain Lion Tips, and we're working on some more right now. And I have a podcast called Systematic on 5x5.
And what's the subject matter for Systematic?
Nerdery. It's all things nerd. Productivity, music, applications, you name it.
Okay, very good, very good. So if you're into nerdery, you want to go and check out Brett's podcast. Last but absolutely not least, decked out in chains and a red accented headset this time around, Mr. Peter Cohen. Peter, it's great to talk to you. It's been way too long.
Indeed it has, Chuck. Thank you very much for having me on again. I'm surprised after the last time that you'd ever invite me back.
Are you kidding? It's always so much fun because we never know what's going to happen when you're here.
Indeed. So yes, my curriculum vitae. Let's see. People can find my writings over at The Loop, where I'm executive editor. I work with Jim Dalrymple over there at loopinsight.com. We track all manners of Apple stuff and whatever pisses us off that day or interests us. We have our pet interests as well. I also have a podcast, Angry Mac Bastards, that I do with John C. Welch and Darby Lines, where we sort of deconstruct the crappiest news and analysis that's Apple related that we've read every week. It's our version of Primal Scream Therapy, and it's adulterated for its explicit language. I'm also a freelance writer, kind of like Dori. I'll write for anybody whose checks don't bounce. So you can find my stuff on Macworld, where I used to be senior editor. I still do reviews for them. Also over at Tap Magazine in the UK, Mac Format, and many other sites and magazines around the world.
So you're just a global enterprise.
I am indeed. I'm a floor wax and a dessert topping.
Well, when we started talking pre-show about what are we going to talk about, one topic jumped right out, and immediately there was some dissension, and that is the application Mailbox that was just purchased by Dropbox. One member of the panel loved it, one didn't get it. I'm somewhere in the middle, and Peter wasn't here yet. So, Brett, how about if we start with you and let you tell us why I believe you said that you love it?
I do. It works exactly the way that my actual email system really does work. I gave a talk at the last Macworld on a panel about how I handle my email, and it was very much in line with the it's kind of a modification of Inbox Zero that Merlin kind of came up with years ago. And Mailbox just makes it really fast, really easy to defer, act on, reply to, archive your mail as it comes in. And if you check it twice a day, it makes it easy to flip down through all your emails and just rapidly file them or reply to them or delete them with just different types of swipes. And I find it very intuitive for the way that I handle email.
Dori, I think you said you didn't get it, and you have the app, but you didn't quite get the concept. Now, after having heard Brett, does it make any more sense?
It makes more sense right now it only works with Gmail, right?
Correct.
So that's a big limitation for it because I don't have that much Gmail email. And I don't worry that much about keeping my Gmail email at Inbox Zero. There's just not that much that comes in that way.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting why I'm not getting it.
Peter, do you use Mailbox or have you tried it?
I've tried it. I don't use it because my Gmail account is so low volume that it really isn't worth it to me. But I've played around with the app, and it's got a cool, very minimalist interface. It's great in that it's got the kind of interface that gets out of your way as an app very quickly, and I think that that's really important, especially for something like email. Like Dori, though, it's too much of an edge case for me right now, being a Gmail only product for me to really care about. Although I know that Dropbox's roadmap includes support for other services as well.
Mm.
It's just that that's where their starting point was.
I'm really intrigued by this. So, Dori and Peter, you neither one use Gmail as a primary channel for email?
Right.
Correct.
Interesting. Brett, is that your primary channel, or have you funneled everything over to Gmail because of Mailbox?
Everything funnels, no, not because of Mailbox. So everything is always funneled into my Google Apps account. So that's my only primary source, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do too, and I like it because that means no matter where I go, on what device, everything is right there, and I only have to touch it once.
Well, that's true with IMAP in general.
It's true with IMAP in general,
to some
Dori.
extent.
Yeah, except that it feels like that I have to manage multiple mailboxes and multiple accounts, and with Gmail, if I just end up sending everything there, it's all one place.
I just simply don't trust Google. That's why I don't use Gmail for much.
I was about to say that too. Especially this week, I don't trust Google.
It's a fair point.
Okay, so let's go in that direction, and we'll get back to some of the other Mailbox stuff. But Google discontinued Google Reader this week.
Or announced plans to this June.
Yeah. And I guess I've had some discussions already on the show about that, but there's so many different opinions here. Now, this is a fairly geeky crowd, very, very technical crowd here. So, I'll ask this question: is RSS dead as a platform, or has it shifted to the back end? And is the loss of Google Reader really important to you, Peter? How about if we start with you?
RSS isn't dead. Some people, as a matter of fact, it's funny because Dori and I were talking about this on Angry Mac Bastards, this week's Angry Mac Bastards as well. Dori was our special guest.
Wait a minute. Dori's an Angry Mac Bastard?
This week she is, yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Just for this week.
Just for this week.
They'll come back anytime they want me.
Indeed. The thing that I think struck me the most from the coverage that I've read this week about Google Readers is how fast people seem to be finding other services to replace Google Reader. I don't really think that Google's abandonment of Reader affects RSS in any significant way. For me, it was a non-issue to begin with because I use a Mac client. I use NetNewsWire from Black Pixel in order to keep up to date on my RSS news feeds. The only thing that Google is related to at all, as far as that's concerned, is syncing between different machines. So, you know, if I use my MacBook instead of my MacBook Air, you know, I can keep my RSS feeds sorted that way. But Black Pixel has already announced that they're looking at alternatives to try to, you know, close that gap. Feedly, in the interim, has picked up 500,000 new users, I think, in the first 48 hours after Google announced that it was discontinuing Reader. So I think that there's very little question that there's going to be plenty of replacements for people who are depending on Google Reader right now to check RSS stuff.
Dori, how about your position on RSS?
Pretty much similar on all that. Similar to what Peter said. The only difference is that I use NewsBlur, and they've had an extreme number of people suddenly signing up for their service in the last few days. So it's kind of Google's loss is everybody else's gain. All these smaller players in the market who are struggling to get by are suddenly just trying to keep up.
I'm not familiar with NewsBlur. Is it an RSS service of some kind, or is it just an application that aggregates RSS feeds?
It's an aggregator.
Okay. Brett, you're the nerdiest guy here.
Google never should have been in this market to begin with, because when they climbed into the space, they destroyed a dozen other would-be competitors in the arena, and in the process, those all withered away because they stuck around long enough to give no one else a chance. And now that they're leaving this void, the web application, it doesn't matter at all. I don't think anyone actually uses the Reader website. It is the sync that matters. But there's got to be a couple dozen Mac and iOS readers that do depend on it for sync, and we do need these other services to step up pretty quickly and offer an alternative. What do we have till June or April? Or, no, it's June.
June.
We have till June to find an infrastructure that can handle the massive number of clients that are using it for sync. In this day and age, I couldn't imagine rebuilding my RSS feeds in multiple clients and then having to figure out what I read in one and not in another. So I do need a universal solution. It's just annoying that Google ever put us in this position to me.
I find it interesting that nobody said, "Oh, I don't use RSS," because I've encountered that a number of places. And
I don't use it as much as I used to.
Okay, that's fair.
But I used to live in my Reader, and Twitter took over a lot of that for me.
I've heard that. I've heard people suggest that Twitter is the new RSS, and I understand the point of it. But the problem that I've got with Twitter as an RSS replacement is that Twitter is real stream of consciousness, and if you don't see something in the ether, or you're not using a Twitter client that can help you track exactly what it is that you're looking for, you're never going to discover new content. It's always just going to keep scrolling by. Which also requires you to kind of keep your eye on Twitter all the time, and I don't want to do that either. One of the nice things that I like about RSS readers is, I can drop everything for a couple of days, go camping in the woods, come back, and pick up where I left off. To your point, Chuck, as far as RSS is concerned, well, the four of us are nerds, so of course we're RSS users. I don't think for the muggles out there, RSS is worth a damn. I don't think that they really care about it.
As a platform, Peter, or
as a useful technology. I don't think that most people know what RSS does. I don't think that they really care about it. It's something that people who are in our line of work, it's an occupational hazard for us, but it doesn't really matter to the mainstream.
I would disagree only from the standpoint that RSS is the back end to a lot of things, that especially on the iOS, that is now being delivered. Pulse, Flipboard, the obvious dedicated RSS readers like Reader, Mr. Reader, NetNewsWire. So it seems as a technology it's important. It's just, again, one of those things that, like, there are probably a dozen different technologies in my car that I don't really understand or appreciate, but it gets me to work in the morning.
Right.
But how does a non-techie person start working with RSS feeds in the first place? That's a jump. You have to know what they are and know why you care.
Well, in things like Flipboard and Pulse, they're an abstraction of the RSS layer. So the end user really does not care about RSS. They don't know where that's coming from. It's a platform. It's a subsystem that all of that runs on. But for the most part, if you said RSS is dead, the average muggle wouldn't flinch. They wouldn't think they ever.
What is RSS?
Right.
Who is RSS? Yeah, and the interesting thing for me, to kind of bring it full circle back to Black Pixel again, makers of NetNewsWire, is that they had an interesting announcement today. Dan Pascoe, who runs the show over there, had an interesting comment about it, and he said that, we've been planning on weaning ourselves away from Google Reader for a while. This has accelerated our plans, certainly. So our first thought was, let's replace this with iCloud, because iCloud's pretty ubiquitous for Mac users and iPhone users and iPad. The only problem is iCloud sucks and we can't get it to work right. So it's one of those things where, Apple does a lot of things great, but they just don't get the cloud. And they just don't get how cloud technology works, and I think that this brings it into sharp focus. Another example of that, where a key developer of Apple's, working with a real key application, cannot get Apple's cloud services to do what they need to do in order to make this work. That's a real serious problem for Apple.
It is, but Brett, I'll turn to you. What is needed from the back end? I mean, can it be just something as simple as a shared file that we might be able to share in through Dropbox between our RSS clients, desktop and iOS? Or do we really need something with the horsepower that Google had? Obviously, they had a lot of users. But how simple could it be if a developer wanted to make it?
As simple as an OPML file, really.
That just gets written to by whatever client?
Yeah, with XML metadata. I mean, it's really, you're not talking about a lot of data. You're not talking about a huge amount of bandwidth, and it could be personalized to some extent.
And so Black Pixel wouldn't necessarily have to have servers running. They could do it, well, they were talking about doing it with iCloud, so I would guess they could do it with Dropbox or some other solution.
Yeah. I would imagine, without knowing all of their plans, I would imagine technically it's feasible without having a huge infrastructure to back it up.
I'm guessing Dropbox will be the way they'll end up.
Well, that or just somewhere. I guess it depends. You can't just drop in any cloud client. I guess you have to use their APIs to do it properly.
I was talking to Dalton Caldwell of App.net today, and he's really hopeful that developers will pick up App.net as that kind of infrastructure. They have a full file API for that kind of sharing. I've seen several developers start working in that direction after the Google Reader announcement, kind of to maximize the potential of the App.net platforms. So there are already existing technologies that could be used as a platform for that.
That's an interesting idea. It would take App.net, at least branch it in a little bit different direction, because right now, whether you like it or use it, it seems to be, it has this identity, unfortunately, as a Twitter clone, with some distinctive characteristics, but still a Twitter clone nonetheless. It would be nice to see them step up and be able to expand out of that, come out of that shadow a little bit into the sun and offer something definitive.
Well, and that's what he repeated to me multiple times, was that they're not there to build the applications. They're there to provide the platform for developers to do so. The entire social part of it was kind of a weekend project to demonstrate its capabilities, and they're starting to see adoption, but they really want app.net to be known as a platform more than a small social network for nerds.
We're back to the for nerds thing again. So how many of us are on app.net? I am. Dori? Yep, Brett?
Same here.
Raise your hand. Peter, too. So all four of us are on app.net.
My main frustration is that I couldn't get the same name I have on Twitter. So there's all my friends are following this guy who has my name on Twitter. It's like I have to go through them every so often and contact them and say, no, that's not me. You want to be I'm over here instead.
I've got a free account that I got a few weeks ago. I don't use app.net for anything, to be perfectly frank. I just decided to, reserve my typical username.
Mm-hmm.
I use it a lot.
Hey, Dori.
It's, Peter, that's an interesting strategy, and it's something I think that we're all starting to do. I know I've done it. I've signed up for services that maybe I really wasn't interested in, but I wanted to.
You have absolutely no intention to use whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But you don't want somebody else. You don't want another Chuck Joyner out there camping on your online ID.
Yeah. And
one of the biggest frustrations of my life for a long time was that there is an Xbox Live user who goes by the same name that I do.
Oh.
And it just frustrates me to no end, because it's one of the very few social networks that I can't use my normal ID with. And it's funny, because I've refused to set up accounts with services where I can't get the name that everybody knows me.
Same here.
Really,
I've never had that problem.
Well, it's brand marketing,
Yeah, but to refuse to do it, I mean.
Given a choice, all other things being equal, if there's multiple ways to do it, at least for me.
Yeah, I mean, if it were indispensable, that would be one thing, but
Yeah, I'm just thinking though, if you could be the Peter Cohen or the real Peter Cohen, or some other variation, and almost have a second primary identity.
And it's funny, because Twitter used to be really important what your handle is, but not so much anymore. I mean, the Twitter clients and Twitter itself seems to focus more on your actual identity than your handle these days.
I still like having a nice 4-character ID. It's just frustrating I couldn't get it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Dori is somewhat unique. I mean, Brett, Chuck, and Peter, not so much. So.
Well, I have the .com as well.
Ooh. So it's nice keeping that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
So it's nice having that. It's Dori at Mac.com, it's me.com, all of that. At Twitter, just couldn't get it on app.net. Actually, the real frustration is too many services don't let you have a 4-letter ID, like Gmail. So I can't use that there. Facebook can't use it.
If you have Google Apps, you can.
Google Apps is no longer free.
Yes, this is true.
So.
Ooh, okay.
Don't trust Google.
Yeah. I'm not really feeling this need to give them money at the moment.
Yeah, but Dori, isn't that part of the problem?
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. If you're not paying money, you are the product.
The Take Control ebook series is bringing you this edition of MacVoices. 2 of the latest additions to the series include Joe Kissel's Take Control of Your Passwords and Tonya Angst's Take Control of Your iPad, 2nd edition. Joe helps you with your safety and security online and off. He talks about what does and does not work as a password strategy, evaluates password management software, and much more in Take Control of Your Passwords. Tonya's Take Control of Your iPad, 2nd edition, updates her guide to Apple's tablet to include iOS 6 information, walks you through the obvious and not so obvious parts of the iPad's interface, helps you appreciate all of the apps that Apple provides with the iPad, and much more. Find both of these books and a whole lot more at TakeControlBooks.com. The answers you need now from leading experts. Take control books. What I meant was not necessarily with Google, but this reliance we've all come to have on free. That, and this is what happens when you rely on something that's free. I mean, you have no. What are you going to say to Google? You're going to say, I paid you good money. Well, no.
I'll take my business somewhere else. Well, they say, okay.
Yeah. So what?
Well, see, the whole idea of indignation against these things is it's not justified in really any case. Every company has to make decisions that are in their best interest financially. That's the way things work. Nobody survives in this world by just giving stuff away, and these companies that have retracted services because of financial fallibility, really, you can't blame them. The only thing, and it's what I said before, is you can blame them for getting into a space to begin with, dominating it with a free product, and then pulling the rug out from under people. But I mean, services get sunset, and it's a financial decision, and that makes sense to me. I'm not mad at anybody. I just wish that certain things were approached with a little more forethought.
Well, it comes back to what Robert Heinlein once said. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Michael Jurowitz, who used to work at Apple and is now working at Black Pixel. Sorry if it sounds like I'm a Black Pixel fanboy, but it is what it is. Wrote a really interesting thing on his own personal blog, a website called JuryMe, Jury.me. And the piece is called The Price of Free. And he says he's got a message basically for developers, and his comment is, running a sustainable business requires generating sustainable revenue. Charge money for what you create. I think it's a very fair point, and to what Dori said before, she's absolutely right. If you're not being charged anything to use something, you're the product, not the software that you're using. That's where Google makes its money. Google makes its money off of ads. Google makes its money off of selling metrics about you to its advertisers. On that hand, on that count, you really can't complain about changes made to a service that you're not paying for. On the other hand, I think it's increasingly apparent to many consumers out there that all these great things that we're getting for free do come at a cost ultimately, whether that's decreased privacy. In the case of Facebook, every couple of weeks, Facebook changes its usage rules or its interface and makes it more difficult or just more convoluted to maintain the level of privacy that you had before. Or in the case of something like Google Reader, where you may depend on a service, but that doesn't mean that the company is beholden to you to continue providing it forever.
I have to wonder what this is going to do to Google, though. It's hard to touch Google, but it seems like now that there's a bit of a meme going around that Google kills a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of truth to it. And so how much longer, how many more times are you going to get sucked into the Google ecosystem if you feel like there's a decent chance that they're going to kill it? Maybe there are situations that you can't resist, that there's just nothing else that will replace it for you. But I just have to wonder, that there seems to be such a, I don't care if it is in the tech community, a bit of a backlash on this, and they killed a lot of stuff that people liked, some they didn't like. Is it going to hurt them?
Let's just say I think it's a really bad week for them to announce Google Keep, which is a brand new announcement. Yeah. I'm not feeling any desire to give Google more of my data, and especially notes that I want to keep, because they could decide next week to take it away. Oops.
Yeah. And there don't seem to be any plans to monetize so many of these things. And so, as Peter said, that the obvious conclusion, and the fact is that you are the product. The more you use, the more they know and that they can sell. But if they decide they're not finding out enough about you or enough about all of us in general, then they kill the service and we're left hanging.
That's part of what amazes me, is that they couldn't figure out a way to monetize all those RSS feeds.
You can't put ads in RSS. Well, you can, but not in a sync application. If everyone's reading through third-party readers, where are you going to put ads? I mean, you can steal that data. You can figure out what their usage patterns are, but I think a lot of RSS users are smart enough to avoid the Google bubble in general to begin with.
Brett, do you think so? And what I mean by that is the casual user?
I'm not talking about the casual user. Isn't an RSS user for the most part. Not in the sense where they're using Mr. Reader and Reader and whatnot. And this is my perception. I come from inside this bubble of nerds, really, and like I see the world through those eyes, and I hear tell of the normal people, and that they don't use these technologies that I rely on. And I've come to the understanding that the average user don't even realize that Google has the amount of data on them that they do. But like for me and the people that I know, like the world that I know personally, we use things like DuckDuckGo. We use Do Not Track. We don't accumulate data. The only data that I really feel exposed to in the Google ecosystem is my email, and I keep the domains are all mine, and the MX server control is all mine, and if they ever pulled the plug on that, I could easily port to another service. The fact that they scrape my email it's disturbing. I use applications that prevent that as much as possible, and I turn off all ads within my email system. But I mean, I don't think the average normal people are doing any of that, but I do think that a lot of the people who make the most use of those services probably are.
You know, there's another point as well. We're talking about, what happens when you rely on free services when they go away. On the other hand, I'm sure that we've all had the experience of paying for something and then not being able to use it as well. So this problem is not unique to free services either.
Right.
No, it's not, but it seems less likely, Peter. At least to me. Maybe I don't have any data to back that up. But it feels like if Brett puts out a program and I buy it from him, I feel like I have a certain expectation. Now he may be a con man and just take my money and go buy.
Or I could just send you a refund when it wasn't financially viable for me to continue providing support on it. I send out refunds and it's done. I mean, it still gets yanked away from you.
I can show you drawers in my office of expensive electronic equipment that doesn't work anymore because its developers have abandoned it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Same here.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, as they say, Chuck. I just don't think that. I think that getting back to Jurwitz's comments, I think that it's important to charge money for something that is worthwhile. I'm a big believer in Harlan Ellison's creed of pay the writer, for example. Cross my palm with silver and we can do business. But don't expect me to give you my words for free, because that's not how I work. As a writer, that's how I feel. I like to tell the story.
But think about all the views you'll get.
Right, exactly. I like to recount the story of how I had a recent experience writing a very lengthy, in-depth review of a restaurant on Yelp. I got about 250, 300 words into this thing, and then I had an epiphany, and I said, why the hell am I giving them content for free? And I just selected all and deleted and went on my way. People do things that have value to you. You pay money for them, but there's no expectation that stuff is going to work forever. Your car is going to break down and you're going to have to get it fixed. Eventually the car is no longer going to be repairable and you're going to have to buy a new one. The car manufacturer has no incumbent requirement to provide you with transportation once they sell you the car. The same holds true for software. The same holds true for hardware. So we have to live in an uncertain world and live with the realization that at any time, any of the stuff that we depend on may stop working.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess maybe it's because even now the world of software and some of these services feel so new to so many of us that maybe we're applying different rules and different things. Brett, I wanted to go back to you and ask you just to explain for the average people who don't live inside your nerd bubble what DuckDuckGo and Do Not Track are.
If you're a Google user, if you use Google for search, and you type in your search, you will get results tailored to the data that Google has collected on you, especially if you're logged into any kind of Google account at the time. And you won't see the actual search results. Your top results will always be things that Google thinks you want to see, not necessarily what the top ranked result based on the algorithm would be. DuckDuckGo is a system that completely removes that. They scrape their own results from the web, spider their own results, and give me very accurate results for 90% of my searches. And the ones where I do need to resort to Google's database, I can prefix a search on DuckDuckGo with an exclamation point and a G, which will pass the search to Google, but without any user data at all. And no tracking, so that I get pure results from Google, and Google can't garner any of my web history in the process, and it can't store my search results. Do Not Track is actually, I don't know enough about Do Not Track to speak definitively to it, but it's basically kind of a decree that you can give your browser that says you can't store browser history information as I move through the web. And whether or not a website or a particular browser respects that is still kind of on a site-by-site basis, but it does provide you a little bit more privacy in your web travels.
Okay, so I may get blown out of the water with this, and thank you for the explanation of what Google does. Is it a bad thing that Google shows me ads for Apple hardware and tech peripherals and that kind of thing, as opposed to an umbrella stand and a glass vase, since those are the things that I'm more interested in, the tech stuff, not the umbrella stand and the glass vase? Is that inherently a bad thing?
No, the advertising, I have a certain appreciation for targeted advertising. It makes sense. It's the fact that if I, during the election season, had gone out and searched for the word abortion, I would have gotten results that were tailored to what Google knew my political beliefs were, not the actual information that, the balance of both sides of what was being posted on the web. I would get very tailored results, and that's where I have a problem with it. If I'm searching Google for a topic, I don't want to know what I already know.
Yeah, and the other problem with targeted advertising is that when you get into specific services, like this happens to me with Amazon. Amazon regularly tells me about things that I've got absolutely no interest in because I've used Amazon to buy things for other people.
Gifts, yeah.
I buy something, I buy a gift for my wife or my kids, and then all of a sudden I'm punished with link after link to products that have absolutely no bearing to my personal interests whatsoever. So
you can take it out of your recommendations, but it's a pain.
Yeah, well, you just don't buy gifts for people.
Right. Yeah. No, that ultimately is the solution, right? Just don't buy into the system, man. Pay cash for everything. The Illuminati can track you anywhere.
Okay, so the algorithms, I'm not going with the Illuminati. So the algorithms are not perfect. All right, I get that and I see your point. But at the same time, if you remove the algorithms, I'm guaranteed to be shown stuff that I don't care anything about. So with the algorithms in place, I have a higher percentage chance. It's not going to hit every time, and it's going to miss.
That's true. That is true, yeah.
What frustrates me with Google is that you don't have a way of saying, I want this but not that. Don't ever give me any answers from this one site, because I know they're complete crap, and they hide the answers anyway when a person goes there versus when Google goes there.
That's right. In fairness to Facebook, they do let you do that. No, I don't want to see this advertisement because this is of absolutely no interest to me. And then it will, rework the algorithm to try to give you better results the next time. That's a very fair criticism, I think.
That assumes that you want to be on Facebook in the first place.
Assuming.
You kind of got to be on Facebook because everybody, all those non-geek family members are on there.
That's what Facebook is for to me, is those non-geek family members. It's my only form of communication with many of them.
Right.
Isn't it interesting that what many of us would consider the lowest level social network, as far as, I guess, quality or usability, is the one that is the most popular, i.e., has the most users?
Well, thankfully it wasn't MySpace.
The nerd bubble is it's such a speck in the overall computer using population. I mean, what we consider to be a truly, powerful, useful service is not of any interest to 90% of the computer and internet using population. It's lowest common denominator, but there's a huge market outside of nerds.
Yeah, but are we that much different?
I am.
Yes, we are.
Whoa! Finally, a unanimous decision. Wow.
Well, and this is one of the things that when you see people complaining about when you see Android people complaining about Apple, this is something that comes up a lot. We hear this trope over and over again about how Apple isn't open and it's a walled garden and all this other nonsense. And the funny thing is, who's Apple popular with? Apple's popular with regular consumers. Tech nerds buy Apple products too, but Apple is a consumer electronic manufacturer. They make products for the masses, and a lot of these arguments that we hear the Android fans come up with play into this kind of insular nerd first mentality of these things are important. These issues are important. No, they're not. Ma and Pa Kettle just want to make calls and play Angry Birds. They don't give a damn about open. They don't give a damn about closed.
They're never going to root their
yeah, they're
device.
never exactly. They're never going to jailbreak their device. It's just not that important to them. Hell, it's not that important to me. I've never jailbroken my iPhone. Never even been tempted to.
I've been tempted to once or twice, but
Brett, I'm sorry, what?
I haven't jailbroken since it was first gen iPhone. I think I jailbroke because there were certain features that just weren't in the OS yet, but Apple caught up. I haven't jailbroken since.
It was back in his college days. He was experimenting. It was a phase.
I'm not that young.
Yeah, I could tell by your hairline.
I've had that hairline since I was about 17, actually.
Oh, yeah,
Just
you too?
receded
I'm
and
sorry.
stopped. I don't mind.
All the brain power going on underneath those, both of them. If it sounds like I'm being an apologist here for Google, I'm not. I guess I'm trying to take a very practical approach in how I look at it. Yeah, I get some great ads in Gmail. I get some stupid ads in Gmail. Usually I can, like Peter said, I can tie the crazy ones back to, oh yeah, I looked at that, or I bought it for somebody, or there was a reason, and it grabbed it. But I just sort of pass over it. Sometimes this argument feels to me like we all subscribe to mailing lists somewhere, and somebody will post one off-topic thing, or one stupid thing, or maybe, God forbid, a spammer gets in and there's one spam message on that list. And there are 50, 75, 100 messages just screaming. People you never heard from in any other discussion are now screaming, why are you clogging up the list with this junk? And it's like...
just clogging up the list is all the responses to it.
Exactly. Let it go. I mean, look, if you start seeing 3 spams a day, yeah, then somebody needs to kind of raise the alarm or make some decisions. But this overreaction to one little thing that has offended my little sensibilities just fascinates me. And it seems to tie into the way people conduct themselves online, which could be another 2-hour discussion. Things they would never do in real life, even to a stranger, they will do with abandon to well-known people online.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference, I mean, you're talking about advertising, and I don't see the ads. The ads are, even when I'm using the web interface, I have the ads hidden. Ads are not of concern to me. The validity of an ad is not of concern to me. It's when it comes to Google, the only thing that really concerns me is the accuracy of my search results and their relevance to the rest of the world. I don't like living in an insular search bubble where I'm getting results that are tailored to my taste instead of what's really on the web, especially, for someone that works in web development and web design and deals with SEO, as dirty a word as it may be. It's important for me to know where where the sites I work for are ranking in any given area. And with a straight Google search while you're logged into an account, you're not going to find that out. You're not going to see the actual rankings. Not that there aren't tools that handle that for me, but...
Brett, you admit to working in SEO, which to many of us is a black mark.
Burn the witch!
Yeah.
We have an SEO department. We have a whole department for that.
Okay.
You're part of the problem, man.
Well, Peter, that's sort of where I was going.
On the web.
In a very friendly fashion. Isn't SEO gaming the system just a little bit, Brett?
No, Black Hat SEO is very much gaming the system, but working to make sure that your site is relevantly indexed and ranked, Google encourages that. That's how Google gets the right search results. That's how Google provides pertinent information, is having optimized sites that provide information, that provide metadata and Open Graph, and make Google's job easy. Gaming the system is a different story to me, and I wish there were two different words for responsibly indexing a site and for stacking it full of product keywords that are just designed to get you straight to the top. There's two different concepts to me.
Sounds like you need to write a book, Brett. I'd buy it.
It would be about that long. I just stated the whole book, I think.
Make it a $50 ebook, and people have to. They won't be able to see it before they buy it.
The secret's the white hat SEO.
Mm-hmm. Whew, that would sell. Now make up a Kickstarter for it. And...
Yeah, right.
Yeah, get a picture of you with the big white hat. Yeah. That works. Well, before we run out of time, the one other topic we wanted to touch on, Peter, you brought it up, is a migration, shall we say, of one particular Adobe employee over to Apple. You want to summarize this and what you think it might mean?
Yeah, in case you haven't heard, Adobe's Chief Technology Officer, Kevin Lynch, has been hired away by Apple. Apple has had a little bit of a vacuum in its executive hierarchy since Scott Forstall was deposed last year, and it was inevitable that they distributed his various responsibilities to other high-ranking members of Apple's executive staff, so there wouldn't be a power vacuum, but it was inevitable that somebody was going to replace him eventually. And it appears that Kevin Lynch is the man to do it. The reason why this has rubbed some of the Mac community the wrong way is because Lynch was one of the biggest cheerleaders at Adobe for Flash technology. Yes, the much reviled Flash technology that is anathema to iOS and is so scorned by Apple that Apple doesn't even bother to install it by default with Safari anymore. You actually have to go out and install it yourself if you want to use it on brand new machines. So it's interesting to see how that's played out, and so far some very high-ranking members of the Apple digerati have had very scornful, awful things to say about Lynch. My personal opinion is let's give the guy a few weeks before we cast a judgment on his abilities. It took John Browett, a few months to completely screw up Apple retail before we knew what a turkey he was.
Don't hold back, Peter.
I never do.
Yeah.
I think that in his last year or so at Adobe, he had figured out that Flash was the past. So
yeah, you're absolutely right, Dori. And sorry, go on.
You can't hold that against him so much.
No, that's
things
true.
He said 2 years ago.
That's absolutely true. And I think the other thing worth considering is that Lynch has obviously been very instrumental in one of Adobe's biggest successes in a very long time, which is Creative Cloud. It's a great example where Adobe really figured out how to leverage cloud computing or cloud technology effectively and in a way that its consumers have really grabbed onto. Adobe has more than 500,000 Creative Cloud subscribers. That is, by any measure, a big success for that company.
Brett, is Flash on the way out? Is it dead? I keep hearing things that Android is going to support Flash. Somebody else I think Windows was going to support Flash. I don't think even technology?
Adobe will support Flash. I think Adobe in general has accepted the death knell for Flash. We've seen them already start releasing products that are more HTML5 compatible, that are of a broader potential for the user base, and accepting that Apple may have had a point when it said, Flash is over. I think that if the creator of Flash has acknowledged that it's on the way out, that it's not going to matter in a few years.
I think we're all in agreement on that one.
Yeah, and Dori, I think your comment was very interesting that he figured out that Flash is the past, and so I guess that means Apple's the future, which is not a bad thing for any of us.
I think the other thing that you've got to consider as far as Lynch specifically is concerned is that his bona fides are pretty rock solid in the Mac development community. This guy came via Macromedia when Adobe acquired Macromedia a while back, and before that he worked at Frame Technology, another company, ironically, that was acquired by Adobe. So he's kind of been, running away from Adobe and then finally embracing Adobe and now moving on from Adobe. But he's had. My point is that he's had his roots in Mac development for a very, very long time. So this guy is a very experienced Mac developer. He understands the platform very well and has worked with it for a very long time.
The other thing I find interesting about Adobe is that I've known a lot of people at Adobe over the years. Given that I write a book about one of the top-selling books on Dreamweaver, they're all gone. It seems like I don't know how many people I know. I'm not sure I know anybody anymore at Adobe. They've all gone elsewhere. And I'm not sure what that says about Adobe's future.
Dori, do you have the perception they've been cherry-picked, or did they go of their own volition?
I think they've all gone of their own volition. They've said there's more interesting things happening elsewhere. And this is not the place I want to be anymore.
Adobe's become the new Microsoft.
Ooh, whoa.
Ooh.
What does that make Microsoft?
The old IBM.
Wow, mind blown.
Yeah, I think we may have to edit on that because I don't know where we go from that.
Yeah.
I want to go around the room and just ask each of you to tell the listeners where they can find you when you're not here starving on the MacJury, because all of you do some really interesting things. I know we did at the top of the show, but Brett, websites and Twitter or social media accounts that you prefer?
I'm TT Scoff just about everywhere, and I blog at brettterpstra.com, which has 3 T's in the middle of it, and it's horribly awkward. And then 5by5.tv/systematic would be my podcast.
Great. Peter?
I'm on Twitter at Flarg, Flargh, and most of my writing is at loopinsight.com, and my podcast is angrymacbastards.com.
Blows my mind that you couldn't get Flarg on Xbox 360.
Yeah, I'm the real Flarg on Xbox.
Okay. You will always be the real Flarg here, Peter.
Of course.
Thank you.
Dory?
As I said before, I'm at Dory.com. My blog is at backupbrain.com. Twitter, I'm Dori, D-O-R-I. And generally, I'm either Dori or Dori Smith on every service.
Great.
Except where you appear to be a man.
That would be Dori on app.net. That's a guy.
What are you on app.net, Dori?
Dori Smith.
Dori Smith. Okay, good. Well, gang, thank you very much. This has been very interesting. A wide range of topics, and I feel like we've spent some time, to borrow Brett's term, inside the nerd bubble. I like
Nerd bubble.
I like that. I think you should. Do you have that domain? If you don't, you should go get it right now.
That's a really good idea. I'm headed to registrar right now.
Yeah, before this goes live.
Who can get there first?
Yeah. Folks, please visit our show notes. I'll have links to everything, the podcast, the websites, the social media connections, everything for our guests, so that you can go and check them all out. With that, the verdict is in. I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the MacJury on MacVoices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and for more Apple, Mac, and tech-related shows, including MacVoices, Mac Notables, the MacJury, and the MacVoices Briefing. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.